It looks like we are preparing to and setting up for YouTube Live.
Woohoo!
All right.
You are a maven of technology. This is
Ha.
beautiful.
Ha.
Good morning,
Okay.
everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday in 2021. We thought it was going to be a better year. It certainly continues to be interesting.
2020B.
Yes. 2020B.
Yeah.
I'm going to call the meeting to order. So it is 9:35. We have a quorum. Ms. Bryant will let people in from the lobby if there are remaining trustees who join us. But really excited to see y'all's faces in 2021. We can get started with the agenda. There are several documents that were in the live binder. Want to make sure everybody has access to that link. Anybody who does not, you can let us, okay, yeah. Erica's going to put it up. Thank you, Erica. As we go through this, we have a streamlined, straightforward agenda today. And so I think we can do our business with little worry. I'm going to move to the first item, which is to review and approve the minutes. I'll give everyone a few minutes if you haven't already reviewed the document as it comes up. And then if there are any questions or concerns, or we can entertain motions.
Do have something.
Ms. Galladay.
So when it comes to the policy, the first bullet, it's just a typo. If you go further down. Oh, okay.
See, oh, okay.
Can somebody tell me what it is? Because I have a limited number of screens I can keep open.
It's
and
okay.
I can't see it.
It's the first bullet under the policy. It just has M capital S, just lowercase the S.
What's the top? But what should it say? I need to record it in the minutes, and so I don't know the reference.
M lowercase S is just something minor, opposed to capital M capital S.
This is in regards to your name.
What's the word that's misspelled, please?
Oh, Miss Galladay's question is at the end of the first
Gotcha.
bullet.
Thank you.
Lowercase the S. And then just additional concern that I brought up, or question, it was about the equality of actions on the accused, as it is stated for the victim. So just that's something else I mentioned.
Do you mind?
I'll email it to you.
Thank you. The correction?
Yes, the correction and update.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Mm-mm. Because you have session with Miss Claudia coming out.
Oh, but Miss Claudia is so long. Miss Claudia is so long. And there's a lot of morning stuff.
I make a motion to approve the minutes with the correction noted by Ms. Galladay.
Hearing the first motion from Amy Richardson. Do I have a second?
A second.
Who wants to take that second?
Janice.
Have it.
Janice has seconded the motion to accept the minutes with the typo edits. All right, motion has been made and seconded. And I'm going to do a roll call for voting. You can indicate with an aye or a nay. Ms. Moore?
No vote.
Hoyt? King?
I'm sorry, say that again.
We're voting on the motion.
Oh.
Hoyt?
Yes.
Aye or nay? I
Aye.
need a verbal. Thank you.
Aye.
Valeria King Jones?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Amy Richardson?
Aye.
Crystal Galladay?
Aye.
Erica McGrady?
Aye.
Tracy Freelander?
Aye.
And Janice View?
Aye.
Great, and then I will vote aye as well. The ayes have it, so the motion has been passed, and the minutes are for our December meeting, November meeting, excuse me, are accepted. Okay, thank you, trustees. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is an executive committee report, which is from me. This is really just an announcement to give you some insight into the emails that you have received from the Education Board Charter, not charter, the name has changed, Education Board Partner Organization. We've been talking for months about resuming and getting back on some board training and support for our own engagement in our work. And Eric and I decided that we would engage Education Board partners in a governance contract to support us, both in some training and some governance support and some access both to coaching for board officers, but also for some potential support for recruitment and orientation of new board members. We signed a contract over the holidays, and the process for Education Board partners includes a board survey to assess where we are. They will be interviewing, I've already done my interview. They'll be interviewing Ms. Bryan as the school leader, and then they will select another board member just to get a sense for where we are and how we operate. And then they will write up a report to us about our status as a board, our strengths and our weaknesses, and make some recommendations about how we can improve our practices overall. At that time, we will have a discussion as a board about what kind of services we'd like to draw down from the contract and hopefully come out stronger on the other end. I was stumbling over the name because they used to be called the Charter Board Partners. They recently expanded because they offer a suite of services to nonprofit boards around the city and around the country. I'll put their website on the chat, but all of you have already received the survey. We kept the survey window open given the holidays, but also just the conditions of the world. So if you haven't had a chance to check out the survey and complete that, you still can. The survey was sent by the principal associate who's assigned to our board, a woman by the name of Shireen Williams, who's got about 25 years of experience working in education and is a tenured senior employee of Education Board Partners. So I'm very excited that we were assigned somebody with a lot of experience, both in board work, but also in DC schools and education. We hope that it's probably going to be about a 6-month engagement with them. We hope that this will really help us, up our game and continue the good work of the board. And I will just open it up for any questions or discussion. I know some of you have had the opportunity to already give some feedback on the survey itself as an instrument. I would also encourage folks that if you really want to be the selected board member or you have opinions or thoughts on that, to reach out directly to Shireen. I'll also put her email address in the chat. So any questions, comments, thoughts, we should get those out.
I just want to say that I actually filled out the survey twice because I got an email saying that they had not received one from me. So I don't know whether that's going to be entered twice. I don't know if I said the same thing the first time with the second time, but I tried to be as consistent as possible. But I know when you're collecting data, I just want to make sure that that's out there. So, yeah.
Thanks, Rodney. I will let Shireen know, but.
Okay, thank you.
Has anybody else had experience working with education board partners or are familiar with them? Just want to make sure. I know some of us have done some trainings with them in the past.
I'm familiar with them. I've worked with them when we were organizing the DCI board initially.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm familiar with them, but we haven't worked directly with them, but certainly I'm familiar with them.
I've attended a few of their trainings.
All right. Going once, going twice on comments, concerns about the work. All right. Their website is now in the chat, as well as Shireen's email address. If you don't have that handy, you can cut and paste it now so that everybody has access to it. As the principal associate, her job is to sort of be the objective observer. And so I do encourage you, if you have feedback or if something happens in the process that you want to engage with, definitely reach right out. All right, I see that Bill has joined us, which means we can move to the next item on the agenda, the finance report. Hi, Bill. Happy New Year.
New Year to everyone.
Morning,
Happy
Bill.
New Year, Bill.
Morning.
Okay, let's see if I can get this. Okay, am I sharing the screen?
You are.
All right. Okay. Well, what I'm going to be reviewing today are the financials year to date through November. And for us, year to date, November means from July 1st through November 30th. That's our fiscal year. So what we have, this is, let me put it down so you can see. It's actual versus budget. As you can see, our income is trailing our budget by about $281K. The primary mover for that is our per pupil allowance because our enrollment did not hit budget. The other thing is that this is a little bit more than it actually should be, but as you go through the payments, because they don't really know what your enrollment is till you probably get to the third payment. So it's not quite where it should be. Our overall decrease is probably going to be about 100K less than that from the per pupil. Other than per pupil income, the only one that's really lagging right now is private grants and donations. And that's a tough one because, if you get a grant, that's going to make up a lot for that. So overall, our income at this point is 281K behind budget, but that's offset by our spending decrease. Our spending decrease is 375K behind budget. So right now we're actually doing better than budget, and hopefully that will continue. I'm not making any predictions because last year I predicted that we were going to have a good year and then COVID hit. So I'm not doing anything like that this year. The only other thing, our cash position is good. We're at 5.8 million. We have, we got the word from BB&T that the loan forgiveness application is probably what it should be. And we've started that application. I've started that process now, and hopefully that'll be done quickly and without any problems. But that pretty much is all I have to report unless there's any questions.
This is Crystal Galladay. I do have 2 questions. I checked out the detailed tab, and I have a question for line 21 and 89. Line 21, as you mentioned, there's a decline in contributions and grants received. Is a huge decline just based on the grants that you mentioned? Because I just wanted to learn if there's anything that we should try to implement for 2021 to help with that.
You mean for the private grants and donations?
Yeah, line 21 is actually, yes, contribution / grants receivable.
Oh, let me take a look at line 21 on this.
Whatever's in the binder for the balance sheet detail.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah. That, when you're talking about the balance sheet, what that is income we've already received, but we're just waiting to get payment for. The reason for the decline there is we had a foundation grant that was paid off. That's why when you look at that, that's more like what people owe us, and it's already taken place. And you would get that is if we got another foundation grant. If someone came and gave us a grant for $1 million and it was payable over 5 years, you would see the receivable of $1 million, and as it was paid down, that would keep going down. But yeah, if we could get some more grants, especially if they haven't, I'd prefer if they pay it right up front, but if they don't, you know, we can.
Okay, so that delta was basically because of a grant that we had, pretty much.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So that answers that. And then for line 89, the refined revenue, let me see. There was a huge difference from the years. Or deferred revenue. Can you please describe, because it's higher in 2020 than 2019. So it may just be defining what the term is, so I better understand the difference.
Let me quick go there. I don't know if I'm going to.
For me, it says the balance sheet details. It's line 89. And it's, I guess, task 2,200.
Bill, could you pull that up?
Okay.
For the board members, it's in our binder.
Okay, it's on the balance sheet, the detail.
Yes, line 89. So just to give some context, in 2020, yes, it was $6,790. In 2019, it was zero. So I'm just trying to understand that, I guess, the term and just what the difference is.
Okay. Off the top of my head, what deferred revenue means is that we have not, I believe that's probably just me not clearing out something from the previous year. I'll have to go back and take a look at it. It means it was something that we were not going to recognize in the current year, which would have been last year. So that's why it shouldn't really be there, but I will make sure that it's taken care of. That's one of those items from year end that I should have spotted and taken care of for this year. It should become revenue for this year if I'm not mistaken.
Hey, and Crystal, I'll just piggyback on that just a little bit, just to be clear. We finalized the audit from last year as well. So all of the financials for Stokes have gone through a really rigorous audit and have been signed off for year end. So if this might be more, Bill's going to take another look at it, but this might be more just a little maintenance, but just so that we're starting from the same understanding that the financials from last year were fully audited, and we had started off from a pretty clean slate. So this might be just some housekeeping.
Okay, and then probably reallocated to the right locations when we have our next report.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Bill, do you remember, Bill or Erica, do you remember what that foundation grant was for? I just want to try and keep in my mind which grants are running down and where I mean, we're gonna have some different needs moving forward, but it would just be good for all of us to remember where we had support. One was for obviously growth, but I feel like we had a couple of projects.
We had a couple. That was either the Charter School Growth Fund last tranche of their funding, or Education for DC. Those were our two main multi-year grants for expansion and replication.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Right,
Any other-
Bill? Was there something else?
No, I think you got them.
Any other questions for Bill's report?
I do have a quick question. Are we gonna go through the profit loss as well, or no?
That's what I just did.
Yeah, I think that was just a nomenclature thing on the actual agenda. What we did, I mean, they're two different names for the same thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then,
I think that what probably might have wanted to be there was the P&L and the balance sheet, and the balance sheet is what you just asked Bill about when we asked those two questions. The profit and loss are the sheet that Bill had in front of the screen and reviewed it first.
okay, so I do have a question for the profit loss then. Column B, we titled it as, was it network? Yeah, what is the term for network? Like, what falls into the network?
Okay, what we have is we have two locations. We have East End and we have Brooklyn. And then we have folks who really cover everything. Erica is a network expense because she is in charge of both. I'm a network expense. We put other various things in that we can't really define for a specific location as a network expense. So, you know, like computer support, that's a network expense because it goes over each one. We can't say so much goes here, so much goes there. So we put it all into network, and that's why we have that.
Okay, understood. And just one more term I need clarification on. It's in the profit and loss by location. Line 24, you have the term SREC. What is that?
SREX, that is the revenue we get from the solar panel system that we have.
Oh, okay.
Yep, solar revenue, electric something, I forget but that's the agreement we have for the solar panel system on the Brookland campus.
Sounds great, thank you. No further questions.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I hope that lots of those answers felt familiar to trustees. I was like, oh,
Newer
gosh.
trustees.
Yeah, we know.
I know.
We know
No,
who's
I
still on
know.
the
It was
board
like,
and who's still been around.
All those questions make complete sense. I was like, yeah, that's right. So I appreciate those questions and the reminders.
That's why it's good to have fresh eyes and new members of the board, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. But we did just get our audit. So I remember we've also gone through some of this stuff just most recently. I mean, just as chair, and I know that we've also just recently revived our development work. I do want to note that it's good to remind ourselves that, you know, we weren't flush in cash, but we had specific foundation and philanthropic grants for growth, and those have now winded down. Of course, there are going to be lots of decisions that the school needs to face once some of the federal dollars come in as pandemic response that will flow through. And I know that in Erica's report, she may talk about some options, but we are likely to need additional philanthropic support going forward into 21. So just want to put that out there in relation to the financials. Ms. Galladay, you have one last question?
I do. Line 79 of the profit and loss by location. It seems as if the occupancy expense for the East End campus is higher than Brookland, but it has less students. So I just wondered why that's the case.
Well, for a couple of reasons. Reason number one is the East End location is being rented, and Brooklyn we own. So in Brooklyn, what we're doing is we have our mortgage payment. So part of the payment we're making is actually against the mortgage, and it's paying it down. The second thing with East End, the way it's set up is our rent agreement is based on the number of students we have. Our facilities allowance for East End students is what our rent payment is. And it's done in quarterly installments. So that's why you see it, we don't pay them monthly. They invoice us on a quarterly basis. So that's why it's higher.
So do you foresee, as we get more students, for our occupancy expense to increase for East End?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And Crystal, that's just, and just to piggyback on that, that is the payment structure. That is the contract that is in the contract for that lease for that. So that's how it's supposed to work. And part of that being, part of the benefit of that being that it's your rent, the amount of occupancy expense you're going to pay is commensurate with the level of students that you have in there. So one of the benefits of that is that you're not overburdened by a high consistent rent payment when you have, and when your school is growing and you don't have the maximum amount of enrollment yet.
Thank you for explaining things to your newest board member. I appreciate
Hey,
it.
I'm glad you're asking those questions.
Somebody had to explain it to him, just so you know.
Thank you, Mr.
School finance school, school finance school. Okay, any other questions about the finance report?
I don't have a question about the finance report, but I do, it maybe is later better to ask when we get into Ms. Bryant's update, but overarching, not to answer it now, Ms. Bryant, but any insight to what the new federal administration's policies are going to be with supporting charter schools. If there is any knowledge at this point, I would like you to just give us any insight you may have, but that could wait to your executive report.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that keeping up, that maintaining these finances, especially in the challenging environment of COVID, is no small task. So I think Bill is doing a pretty strong. I think the Treasury Committee thinks that Bill is doing a really strong job with this, and appreciate the effort that he puts into it.
That's great. Is that a hand, Janice? Did you want to get in the conversation?
No, that was a clap.
Or is that a clap? Yeah, that's right. I got you. I love it when people know how to use the Zoom reaction buttons. Okay. Hearing no more questions, I'm going to close this agenda item out. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Bill.
we're going to the next agenda item, which is student performance. So Julia has joined us.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Julia.
I will share my screen if that's okay with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So just to give you kind of an overview, we don't have a lot of standardized test assessment data to share today. I'm going to share a little bit about what we did in the fall, this most recent trimester for NWEA. But because we didn't do spring testing, we don't have Parks data or NWA from that period to share. But I'm just going to give you a little bit of overview about what data and assessment is going on, and then give you some sort of preview to what's happening in the upcoming months. So in the fall of 2020, this just a few months ago, we tested kindergarten through 5th grade students in math and reading on NWA MAP. And for those of you who don't know, NWA MAP is an adaptive computer assessment that we've been giving for several years. It's nationally normed, so kids are given a percentile relative to their national peers on this assessment. We looked at growth data between fall of 2019 and fall of 2020. And we found that the results were pretty unreliable. We did all of our testing remotely, and particularly for kids in kindergarten through 2nd grade and students with special needs, we found that their scores varied with a huge amount of significance from their previous performance. We found that that was probably a result of the difference in testing environments. So we gave families some guidance about how to support their children without giving away content, but it can be a real challenge without proper training, to really support students who need extra help without giving away cues with your body language or like telling them to stop and reread the question and things like that. And so we found that the results were pretty all over the place in terms of how the kids did. And let me just show you an example. This is just one set of data. This is kindergarten through 2nd grade reading achievement on the left in the blue. And so what you see here is buckets between 0 and 5% is the little bar here. Between 5 and 10% is this bar. So you can see that the vast majority of our scores were clustered at or above the 90th percentile, which indicates to me that there's a level of support that maybe they're not going to get in the classroom that the students were getting at home while they were testing.
This is all data from this year?
This is data from this year. This is the fall 2020 data. And so.
And can I ask you just one other follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really what you're saying is parents and families kind of help their kids take the test.
Yeah.
And so it is not a true representation of their skill level and ability. And this is happening nationally, by the way.
Yeah,
so it's not. It's because you're home with your kid, right, Julia?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I want to break it down just a little bit.
Yep. So that is what I'm saying. And I don't blame families, right? I don't think they're intentionally being like, oh, I'm gonna tell my child the answers to the test, right? It happens really naturally, right? Your child is struggling. They're like, it's hard. I don't know what I'm doing, and then you support them in ways that teachers in the classroom would A, know not to do, and B, not have the time to be able to do that kind of support with each of these children, right? Does that make sense? And so what I put a normal curve on this data because this data is nationally normed, we would expect to see some sort of curve that looks more like this in the data, right? And that's not necessarily always true with Stokes data because our sample size is small, but you would expect a curve like that in both of these results. It's not, that's not the case, right? The growth data is a little different, and you can see also that there's a lot of outliers on this side here. So the other piece of this, right, which a lot of the data I think was unreliable is their students maybe didn't get as much support from their families, but also just didn't really attend the test the way that we would expect them to in the building, right? Like just kind of clicking through and guessing. And there's not somebody there who's trained to know to slow them down, right? And so we found remote testing to be just generally pretty difficult to manage. And then this is a similar, so this was last year's reading data in the fall. So you can see that the spread is different, right? You still have more kids clustered in the higher ends, which is great, right? It means our kids are scoring better than normal, but this was this year's data. So you can see how skewed that is, right? So I'm going to stop here just in case anybody has any questions about our fall 2020 NWA standardized test results and why we don't feel like remote testing provides us with accurate results.
Can you talk about why the school made the decision to give the NWE a test in the fall So we have a good sense of what the potential benefit was. And it sounds to me like you're saying that the conditions just didn't really allow.
Yeah, great question. So I would say that we typically give the NWA 3 times a year. We give it in the fall, the winter, and the spring. We don't give the NWA at the end of the year to our 3rd through 5th graders because they take park then, but we give it to everybody else 3 times a year. And the reason for that is we use our NWA data for a variety of reasons. One of the biggest ones is to identify students who may need extra support through the student support team process, monitor students on IEP's progress, like as a universal screener to kind of make sure that we're not missing anybody who needs support that isn't getting it, things like that, right? And so those same reasons were reasons why we chose to try and do it remotely in the fall, right? We want to make sure that we were tracking student performance and not letting anybody fall through the cracks who maybe needed extra support. But unfortunately, I don't feel like I think it was great to attempt it, but I just don't feel like it was an accurate representation of student data. And I find that it may not be worth doing remote testing for those purposes in the future. Does that answer your question?
And what does it cost us to to administer tests?
So it's a yearly license. I don't have the exact number, but it's approximately $3,000 if I remember correctly for the year for the licenses for the NWA. So you can give it up to 4 times a year.
Julia, the biggest cost actually is Julia's time. Staffing is a huge, because Julia dedicates between scheduling, working with, testing security plans, and all of the other logistics involved in making this kind of thing happen. That's, I think, where the biggest cost comes.
Absolutely. And staff, right? Other people, I have to pull other people from other positions to support kids with technology and logging in and all of that in order to make this happen. So that's very true. Thank you, Ms. Bryant.
Julia, will the park test be given in the spring as well to the 4th and 5th graders? And also, will you test all of the school in the small group testing in the building, including those grades that you might not have tested in years past, just because we don't feel like that we have a good data with respect to the earlier testing?
Great questions. Let me get through these next couple of slides, and I think they'll be answered there, okay? So my hope is to get small group testing in the building as early as possible. My goal is to do that in early 3rd trimester, probably in April. We're talking about details about how to do that because we would like to have a set of data that is reliable, that we can understand how students are doing. Again, this is kind of a logistical challenge because our classrooms are small and we can only fit a certain number of students in there at a time that are socially distanced. But I'm hoping that we can pull in as many kids as possible to get them in the building to do small group testing this spring. And we'll use the NWA map and other benchmark assessments as screeners. And then if we think that students may need additional assessments to plan for interventions during the summer or in the fall, then we're going to do those assessments as well in that time. So one thing to note is that park, as of now, park is mandating, DC is mandating that we administer park this spring. They have both remote and in-person options available. The reason for that is that the U.S. Department of Education is not currently granting waivers for accountability plans from states that do not include standardized testing. So that means that this is sort of a federal mandate that's coming down to OSSI. OSSI's not going to publish STAR scores for school year 2021, but they have not committed to not publishing the scores publicly. The team generally at Stokes has a lot of concerns around the accuracy of the data that they're going to get because we will have to deliver that test remotely. Park is 7 different test sessions, so it's about a week of testing. And we don't think that it's logistically feasible to get all the 3rd through 5th graders in the building at once to do this. do this in person. So we'll probably need to do this remotely if this continues to be a mandate. And I do have a lot of concerns around the accuracy and also test security issues. So there's a lot of, OSSI does a lot of monitoring of the park test in normal times, where they come in and make sure that people aren't taking pictures of the test questions. They aren't, using unauthorized calculators or other accommodations and things like that. And I think it's going to be a real challenge to monitor that and make sure that students are testing accurately. Any questions before I move on here?
I do, Julie.
Yep.
Julie, a question. So what we're experiencing, the challenges that you show that we're experiencing with this remote testing, I gotta imagine, I mean, Heather's already said it was national, but this has got to be the same challenges that all the DC schools are having. Has the charter school board given any guidance on how they would treat the testing results as far as the tier scoring?
Yeah, they're not going to tier us either for the test scores.
Okay.
So neither OSSI or Public Charter School Board will tier schools based on these test scores. My concern, though, is that they may still publish them publicly.
Okay.
And also, they haven't committed to not using them for growth scores for the following year. So a lot of the things that go into the STAR score results from tracking kids' growth from one year to the next, right? And
Yep.
so let's say this year our third graders test remotely and get a lot of support with that testing at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then next year's fourth grade scores don't look as good because they're in the building and the test security protocols are stricter, right? Like that makes me pause a little bit about their use of the data.
Yeah. When you say they're not going to use the testing to do for tiering purposes, does that mean that they're still going to, the charter board still plans on having the tier system and implementing tier system? Okay.
So they will publish results, but without the test data, they don't have enough ability, like they don't have the ability to, there's not enough in the system without the park results to give a tier. So
Okay.
they'll publish the re-enrollment, they'll publish attendance data, but they can't
Okay.
actually tier without
Okay.
test results.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
That does. That does.
Julia, question.
Mhm.
I assume that for park, you think we'll see the same type where everybody's skewing to the higher end in the park scores as well. Is that the concern, amongst other things?
Yeah, I mean, I that is definitely a part of my concern, right? That students are going to be getting additional support either because they use a calculator for the math part or ask their family or friends. But there's also I also have concerns on the other end because like a lot of our job in the building as test proctors, right, is to keep students focused, to make sure that they're attending to tasks and things like that. And I think for another, a portion of our students, I think we saw that in the NWA too. They just kind of flipped through the questions and didn't really try. You know what I mean? And I think that's a concern of mine as well, right? Just that I think that the data will be skewed both ways.
Got it.
Any further questions on park for this year? My hope is that the new administration will give states additional flexibility from the accountability plans and not move forward with this mandate. So that is my hope. But we'll see what happens. Right. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about our instructional recovery plan and some takeaways that we have from distance learning so far. So these are a few of the things that we're planning on doing and working through building out. We have reading intervention groups that are going to be delivered remotely, launching in January of 2021. So this month. We also have. We're also planning for lots of things as we re-enter the building. So intentional social skill remediation and relationship building. So that's one of our highest priorities as an instructional leadership team, is to really think about what kinds of skills kids are going to need as they re-enter the school building, in terms of their social skills, and how to build relationships back up between them and staff. We're also planning a summer foundations program, a summer school program focused on students with high academic needs, and we're prioritizing, those students that we have identified that need extra support. But we're also going to use the data that we collect in the small group in-person testing in the spring to identify kids who need some remediation during summertime. We're also planning for academic services during out of school time. So things like after school tutoring, Saturday academy, things like that. And we're also doing work on the realignment of our curricular scope and sequence. So making sure that, we're understanding really thoroughly where kids are as they enter the building, and then adjusting our curriculum so that we meet them where they are and make them grow from there. So those are sort of our 5 big pieces: our intervention group starting now, social skills, summer foundations, out of school time, and realignment of curricular scope and sequence in our instructional recovery plan. You guys have any questions about that?
Yes, Julia, I do have a question. Thank you for providing this summary. With the reading intervention groups, how are the students identified?
Yep. So they've been identified through a variety of purposes. There've been teachers have been doing sort of one-on-one check-ins with students. Some assessment that's happening both in small groups and one-on-one. And then just in general, there's teachers have collected data through some of their online platforms and things like that. And so it's based mostly on teacher-driven assessment and data from the platforms that they use. And teachers have made recommendations, and then they've been, the SST team, the student support team, is making groupings.
And then are the parents notified if their students are a part of this reading intervention group?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't know if they've been notified just yet, but I know that it's in the works.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Julia,
Yep.
The Academic Excellence Committee initially was centered around the work of the strategic plan, and of course now things are off alignment because of COVID and so forth. What can that committee do to be supportive? I see Tracy has already volunteered. She's not on the committee, but has volunteered to help with testing, and I'm sure that's something that the committee would want to support as well. Are there other things that board members in particular can do to support?
That's a great question. There's a lot of really great expertise on this board, and I think that we definitely could use some thought partners in terms of ways to think creatively about finding additional time to support kids and strategies to support kids. So I would welcome, if anybody would like to join us on an instructional leadership team meeting to really think about these priorities that we have for instructional recovery, and ways to sort of think out of the box around how to find more time and energy for them.
When does the team meet? Is there sort of a standard meeting day and time?
We have a Tuesday afternoon meeting typically from 1 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested, just let me know, and we can move around our agenda items so that we can have some additional support there. That would be wonderful.
Okay.
The last, go ahead.
Before you move on,
Yep.
I remember, I don't remember if it was in the spring or if it was in the early fall, but we've also been tracking engagement of virtual learning, and have you all been able to look at, continue to track those, but 2, have you been able to look at that in relation to some of this assessment data? What does that tell you? So I hear a lot of people are looking at attendance, but also sort of login patterns, et cetera. Mm-hmm. Is there more for us to know about that as a way of understanding academic engagement?
Yep, that's a great question. The SST team has definitely been tracking that for students of concern, right? So students that teachers have flagged that like maybe aren't engaging fully. I would say that for the most part, our student population has been really, really engaged with our distance learning program. We have, you know, a handful of students who are having trouble engaging for a variety of reasons. But I would say that for the most part, you know, our students are really, really engaged with our programming. I don't have that data in front of me right now, but I know that the SST team does. And so I can pull that together for you to share out if you'd like me to. But they've been looking at like which sessions kids are attending and why, and really putting in a lot of interventions in place to get them more engaged.
Thank you.
Mhm. Just a few things that, you know, this time has been really challenging and interesting for us in a lot of ways at Stokes in terms of our instructional leadership team. It really pushed us to sort of rethink creatively how we approach instruction and collaboration and things like that. And so there are several things that I think we've been able to take away as lessons that we want to continue to move forward with as we re-enter the building and as we recover from this pandemic time. And I just kind of wanted to share a few of those things with you all. We have been really, you know, Stokes was sort of catapulted into the 21st century back in March in terms of our use of instructional technology and telecommunications technology. We have found it really, really useful to, particularly for some of our inquiry work, our Padlets and those kinds of collaborative platforms, I think have been really interesting. Students are able to share what they know in a lot of different ways. And I think we're definitely going to continue to use instructional technology in a really more deep and thorough way as we move forward. The other piece, right, is the telecommunications part for parent communication and cross-campus collaboration. Like we just as we all know, right, we're on a Zoom board meeting. The barrier of not being in the same place at the same time has really been broken. So we're excited to continue to use those kinds of options to be able to communicate better with each other and with our families. Additionally, the way that we've structured our schedule is that students are receiving a lot of small group instruction. So teachers are able to differentiate, increasingly able to differentiate. And so we hope that with the combination of instructional technology and small group instruction, we can continue to differentiate really well for our students in the classrooms. The other piece I think that we've learned is that IB has a lot of these approaches to learning, which you may have heard that term before, but students are really building a lot of self-management and research skills as through distance learning. They are able to kind of manage their own work with more independence, and they're building a lot of skills in terms of how to research through the internet and things like that. And so we're going to continue to build those skills. They've just shown us how really capable they are. And you know, that needs to, you know, that support needs to continue. Providing additional support to families as educational partners. We rely on our families so much right now, and we found some strategies to really engage families and help them support their children at home. And we're going to continue to kind of work on that even when we have them in the building. Like there's been a refocus on social justice and community support among our community. And I think that that's something we also want to continue. We've also been doing a lot of really thorough analysis and individualizing learning plans for students, not just students on IEPs, but also students just in need of additional support. Our team has been spending a lot of time on the analysis of barriers to learning and things like that. And so that's something that we're going to move forward as well. And I think that a result of this telecommunications piece and realignment of our curriculum has been an improved LEA alignment. So our cross-campus alignment has been I think a bit better, and we are doing a lot more two-way stakeholder communication, lots of surveys to families and things like that, and analysis of those results. So I think those are all things that we've taken away from this time that we're going to move forward as we even as we re-enter the building. any questions here.
Could you say a little bit more about the increased use of technology? Do you have examples of what you all are thinking about in that regard? Just out of
Yep.
curiosity.
Absolutely. So, so right now, there's a lot of things that are happening in our virtual classrooms that, you know, students are reading or listening to information about a topic, and then or researching information about a topic, and then reporting it out through collaborative means on the internet. So I don't know if you've seen Padlets or Flipgrid and things like that. So students have the opportunity to like create videos, create images, write pieces, and then post them on a collaborative board. And so I think that has been one of the most, I think, most useful pieces of this, right? Is that rather than students just here with a piece of paper and pencil, you know, reporting back what they've learned, there's like multiple modes of the ability for kids to do that, right? So they can speak it, and they can draw it, and they can find images that match it, and show their learning in a lot of different ways. So that's one of the ways that I think we're going to continue to use educational technology as we move forward. And additionally, there's some platforms that provide like lessons through the platform. So the math curriculum that we're using now like provides actual math lessons and give students practice. And so the teachers are able, while some students are working, like 5 or 6 students are working on the computer doing the math lessons, the teachers are able to give live lessons to the other small groups of kids, and then switch, right? So that there can be increased differentiation among those small group lessons that the teachers are giving. So those would be 2 examples, I think, of the ways that we might use educational technology.
Great, thank you. I think people have found a lot of success with those platforms that you just mentioned, and I know Stokes is committed to social justice and topics of that sort, which also warms my heart, especially in light of our world today.
Yes.
And I just hope that, I think we all need more lessons on nuance. And there's a BBC special called The Death of Nuance that is quite disturbing because we don't read as much anymore. We don't have a lot of face-to-face interactions, even without COVID, because of technology. And I know technology is a tool, but I'm also challenged myself in terms of how to relate that to a more core human experience. So I'm encouraged by what you all have laid out here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, we definitely keep that in mind, right? Like the skills are important, right? But all of us, for all of our jobs now, almost, you know, collaboration and critical thinking and things like that are even more important, right? Like we just really have to continue to focus on those important skills that we don't want to lose that to the computer screen, right?
I had a quick question about the prior slide. Will the tutoring and the summer program be free for families?
Ms. Bryant,
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions that I can answer for you?
Julia, thank you for that report.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Julia.
Great questions, trustees. I'm sure Erica is going to address this in the next agenda item in her report, but we may have some board work to do to ensure that these things stay free. but I want to take the question really seriously because this return to in-person is going to be a challenge for the school, and as trustees, if we can be thinking about what kind of resources we can bring to the table and all kinds of resources in terms of support and thinking, because we can see the challenges, both the advantages. So Julia shared so many positive things that have come out of virtual schooling, but also the real desire for us to connect with each other in the community. So we will turn to the next agenda item, which is the executive director report. Erica.
All righty, let me share my screen here. Okay, do you guys see it? Very good. All right. As always, I want to ground us in our mission, which, you know, seems right now to be even more important than ever, but to prepare culturally diverse students to be leaders, scholars, and responsible citizens who are committed to social justice so that when they grow up, they can insist upon a more equitable and just world. I also wanted to thank board members for contributions that you all made over the past couple of months to support our distribution of care packages to Stokes School staff. They were very grateful for the care packages. We gave staff choices of what they wanted to receive in their care packages, and they requested everything from books to, you know, aromatherapy candles to gift certificates to cozy socks. But it was just a really nice way to, and the timing was actually really good too, because everyone got packages in the month of December, around the time that we were closing school for break. So wanted to express that to you, and also to let you know that as a staff, we're going to be continuing to support staff wellness throughout the rest of the pandemic. We have organized activities for staff from, you know, people are volunteering to give yoga lessons or guitar lessons. We've had game nights, we've had virtual parties, but we're finding ways to try to come together as a school community virtually, because that's a really important part of who we are as a school. So we will be keeping that up as long as we are in this virtual posture. So I also want to return to an item from last month's agenda. We passed policies concerning preventing student sexual abuse. We had some feedback in the last meeting to request amendments to these policies, which were attached to your pre-reading document. So I hope that everyone had a chance to read through those documents. The amendments were drafted by our special education attorney, and want to publicly thank Tracy Friedlander here for helping to facilitate that process. In the new amended policies, we've got some guidance for parental involvement in the case that there are student interviews of, you know, alleged sexual harassment or abuse. We are to inform students that they have the right to have their parents or guardians present, and that is officially part of this document. The document also reflects some updates in Title IX federal law that were updated over the summer. Title IX also pertains to protections for people based on sexual abuse or sexual harassment. One of the biggest, well, there are several changes, but we have identified within our policies additional people on staff who will serve as Title IX coordinators, who staff or families can approach if there are issues with sexual harassment or if there are suspected cases of sexual abuse. Okay, so are there any questions? Again, I hope that people were able to read through these documents. I know that there were questions about guidance separate from the policy, but are there any questions about the amended policies that were presented?
Yes, I do really quick. You mentioned in this statement on the third bullet, school shall consider the student's age when determining whether it's appropriate to contact the parent or guardian. What is the age?
I think it depends on the circumstance, Ms. Galladay, and I think that this really refers to older students. There may be instances, for example, if there's a high school student who, you know, identifies as as part of the LGBTQ community, and their parents aren't aware of that, and that might come out in some interview process about sexual harassment. It would be, it could be detrimental to the student if his, her, or their parents were present. So I think that's what that refers to. Does that make sense?
The age, if they're a minor under 17,
Under 18.
Under 18, their parents will be notified pretty much if it's not that aspect, correct?
Unless there is, and again, I think the age piece has to do with older students. With the younger students, certainly students in elementary school, parents would be notified, but in middle school and high school, if there are circumstances that would put a student in a precarious position if their parents were notified, I think that that is what that piece is referring to. But in elementary schools, we would notify the parents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions about the amendments? Okay, I think we need to pass the amended version.
Okay, so what we need there is a motion to accept the amendments as presented and the pre-reading and in Erica's report.
Move that we accept the amended student sexual harassment and abuse policies as amended in our report.
I second it.
Great. The motion on the floor.
Who was the
by
I'm
Janice,
sorry, who was the second?
and seconded by Tracy.
Thank you.
So we have a motion that has been seconded, and I will do a roll call for the vote. Again, I just need your aye or nay when I call your name. I'm using the Brady Bunch squares to go through. Ms. Moore.
No vote?
Hoyt.
Aye.
Valeria.
Aye.
Amy.
Aye.
Janice.
Aye.
Rodney.
Aye.
Carlos. We can't hear you.
Aye.
Thank you, Carlos. Crystal.
No vote.
Vote. Erica.
Aye.
Grady. Tracy.
Aye.
And I will vote for myself. Aye. And what I hear is that the ayes have it. Ms. Moore, do you need any clarification for documentation?
I do, please. Ms. Galladay's no vote, was that an abstention? Because that's different from what I said for no vote.
Yes,
was that an
I abstained from voting this time.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification. The motion passes. The amendments are accepted.
Great.
All right, Erica.
Okay.
Back to you.
So we'll go on to more updates on Middle States accreditation. I shared in the last board meeting in November that although we have recently been authorized as an IB school, we are also required by the DC Public Charter School Board to have accreditation through another accrediting agency. Ours has been for the last almost, I guess, more than 15 years through the Middle States Association. We have scheduled our visit dates now for that accreditation visit. That will be sometime in late November 2021 or early December. We will be, again, the accreditation process is an evaluation process of a set of performance standards that Middle States forward, including assessing our mission and governance and leadership, our school improvement planning, the state of our finances, facilities, the school organization and staff, health and safety, our education program, and so forth. We begin this accreditation process with a self-study. It is a written document where we are pulling information, we are compiling information about all of these different standards. When the document is prepared, we will forward that to middle states for their review. Following that review, a team of volunteers typically comes out to school to conduct a 2 or 3 day visit to meet with staff, to confirm basically that everything that we have put in the self-study is true. They meet with governance, school leadership, board members, parents, and students. Because we are still in the middle of a pandemic, we anticipate that this visit will be a virtual visit. It's actually, in my opinion, a virtual visit is more effective and more efficient. I participated at the end of November, beginning of December of last year. I was part of an accreditation team visit with Middle States for a school in New Jersey, and it was probably one of the best ones I've participated in. I have participated on other visiting teams and also been a part of the accreditation process with Middle States at Stokes. But this virtual process allows us to, there's a lot of logistical planning that's involved in the in-person visits that we wouldn't necessarily have to manage with the virtual visit, and also just convening people, parents, and convening any board members who would need to meet with the visiting team is a much easier process when you set up a Zoom meeting rather than having to schedule people to come into the building. So we are looking forward to and preparing for the visit as we speak. We will be informing the larger school community, including parents, of the upcoming visit, because there will be some parent participation required when the visit actually takes place. In addition to the reaccreditation process, because we are Stokes School and we just have to do a little extra, this time we are looking to have some recognition through something that Middle States calls programs of distinction. It really is just, it is recognition that the programs that we are highlighting are models for other schools worldwide. The programs of distinction that we're looking for to get recognition for are the world language program, our music program, our service learning, community service program. Potentially, we're not sure yet, but we may also apply for our early childhood education program, but we'll be doing that concurrently with the reaccreditation process. So that's that update. Any questions about Middle States reaccreditation or their programs of distinction?
Just curious, Erica, what's the frequency of that we go through the reaccreditation process?
Every 10 years, okay. There's a midterm evaluation where we have to send in, documents to Middle States, check in with there is a person who's appointed to each individual school, so we have check-ins, but the actual accreditation or reaccreditation process is every 10 years.
I assume there's a fee that goes along with this as well?
There is a fee. There's a fee associated with everything, yes. It's less expensive than IB authorization. There are annual dues that we pay to Middle States. If the accreditation team physically comes to the school to do the visit, we're required to put them up in hotels and pay for their transportation, pay for their food and entertainment. But yes, there are fees associated.
In particular, Erica, what are ways that the board can be helpful? I mean, this is obviously a big deal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if you know off the top of your head right now or over time, you'll know. Between now and November, you'll know what we can do, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Right now, we are in the process of forming working groups to both compile information for all of the different standards in the self-study and to write the document. It will be very helpful if we have not necessarily board members helping to write or to compile that information, but just involved in the process, particularly with governance and leadership standards. So I will be reaching out to people probably in the next couple of months or so to keep you in the loop of that process, and probably invite you to a couple of meetings where we're discussing the progress. If there is anything else that we can think of where we can use board support, I will certainly let you know. Thank you for the question, Jenny. Any other questions? Okay. Just a quick update about the development committee. Ms. Moore is actually helping to bring that committee together. She has been in contact with committee members that have been recruited. They are in the process of setting up meetings for the school year. I'm not sure, Ms. Moore, if you want to add anything to that.
I can just say that we tried to set up meetings before the holiday. Well, we tried before the holidays to set up meetings that would have in fact been right up against the holidays, and we're not successful at that. So I'm going to give it another try, and I'm hoping we can meet within the next 2 weeks. There is a, I think I sent out materials about with suggested emphasis of development, its emphasis going forward, and materials about, some materials about school finances and that can be used to for a discussion of how we identify what the fundraising needs are. So by the next board meeting, hopefully we will have a fuller report.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Any questions from anyone about development committee work? Additional questions? All right. On to school reopening and reentry. So we have learned that the District of Columbia will make vaccines, COVID vaccines, available to educators starting on the 25th of January. Based on this, we are planning to open our buildings back at the beginning of the first trimester, which will be around mid-March. This will allow everyone who wants to get a vaccine to go through both rounds of vaccinations before we get into the buildings. We are planning, as we have been all along, to bring in the initial group of students who will be the most at-risk students. These are students who have special education needs, or students, as Julia was explaining, who have had trouble accessing distance learning, or there are several criteria that we're looking at. We are at the moment going through and re-identifying those groups of students so that we will be ready to issue invitations to families at the beginning of February to have those students come back into the building. We're making an official notification to the entire school community before the end of January. That's what we committed to do, to let them know about this latest update. Obviously, if if health indicators allow for it, but this is our planning for the moment. Once we get that initial group of students in, the small cohort of at-risk students, then our plan will be for the next step to bring in as many pre-kindergarten and kindergarten students as we can, as social distancing requirements will allow. We don't know exactly what those numbers are, but our goal, because we know not only parents and students are eager to get back into the building, but many people on staff are as well. But we want to do it as safely as we possibly can. Between now and the beginning of the third trimester, we're confident that we will have all of our facilities upgrades in place. I think I've talked before about some of the upgrades that we've made to our HVAC system at our both the Brooklyn and the East End campus. We will be setting up classrooms that are, appropriately that have appropriate furniture and social distancing and signage and plans for how students and staff will enter and exit the building and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of operational and logistical work to be completed before we actually open those doors, but we're confident that that will be able to happen before the beginning of the third trimester. I have
so
first
Erica,
trimester.
Sorry to interrupt you, but so the second bullet should say the beginning of the third trimester?
I just saw that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The beginning of the third trimester. In my head, I had third. I think I was thinking first day of third trimester. But yes, you're right.
And if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying everybody needs to have the vaccine, both doses, before entering. Is that correct or no?
No, that's not what I was saying. I was saying that everyone who wants to have the vaccine will have enough time to have both doses before they enter the building. We are not mandating that people have the vaccine, because I don't think we can mandate that people get that vaccine. There are some people on staff who are reluctant to get the vaccine, and that is their choice. There are others who are ready to go on the 25th of January to get that first dose.
And then when it comes to letting small groups in, there'll still be active virtual learning too. So it'll be both going on at the same time.
Thank you for that question. Yes, the structure will be that those small groups are in the buildings, but they are still engaged in distance learning. So they will be in the buildings, they will be supervised by staff, but the instruction will take place in a virtual platform. Similar to what DCPS is doing with their CARES classrooms right now.
So will it be far off of what's happening now in virtual learning? Or any different?
In terms of the instruction?
Yes, from the virtual. Okay.
No difference. It will be the same structure for the virtual learning. The difference will be that the students are in the buildings, and they will be supervised by either our distance learning support staff or our learning specialists or teacher assistants, but they will be engaged in virtual learning through their computers. Okay. And Julia also mentioned that we are planning to have a summer program in place to help support students who need some additional academic support.
Erica, I have a question for you, please. Just a question for clarification. when we were talking earlier about the out of school time programs that we're planning for, and the question was asked whether they will be free. What is that for summer programming only? Is that for summer and after school and Saturday Academy?
That will be, we have spoken about summer programming and tutoring.
Okay. So,
Okay.
So not after school and not Saturday Academy.
Yet to be determined for
Okay.
Saturday Academy. If there is any time that we have tutoring or academic support programs, as you know, Ms. Moore. Even,
I just want to get, I just want to get it right for the minutes, because
absolutely.
It wasn't clear to me in the initial discussion.
So for our programs where we provide academic support, either in summer school or before or after school tutoring, we do not charge families for these services. We have tapped into a few sources of funding thus far to help support both the transition back into the school buildings and some of this academic support work that we're going to be providing. And the sources of funding that we've accessed thus far include funds from the CARES Act, the 2020 CARES funding. We have applied and been tentatively approved for funding through the SOAR program. The SOAR funding typically supports academic quality, any programming that has to do with academic improvement of academic quality or some kind of facilities enhancement. This year, all of those funds have been combined for both facilities and academic quality. So we've tapped into that funding. We have not applied yet for the CARES 21 funding, but we still have several months before the deadline date for that particular application. I also learned earlier this week that, or actually late last week, early this week, time runs together, the mayor has announced a separate source of funding available, separate from federal funding, local sources to help support schools that will have in-person learning in DC for students at least 4 days a week, whether it's full-time cohorts that as we are looking at, or whether it's hybrid models. I understand that particular source of funding could be up to $750,000. I think that would be for much larger schools. The base funding for that source is $50,000 per campus, per school, not per LEA, but per campus. And then there would be an add-on amount provided for every student that is physically in the building. So those are the funding sources that I am aware of right now. We're constantly on the lookout for funding that can help support us through the transition back into the school buildings. And if anyone is aware of other sources of funding that can support us, we are open and willing to put in an application for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Bryant, I have just one or two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
With the reopening, as the school consider in the discussion around vaccines, and I know that a lot of people have different views on vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
Has the school thought about issuing the school sentiment or whatever policies around vaccination or prior to the reopening so that it is made aware?
That's a really good question. In terms of staffing, Carlos?
Yes.
We have not specifically talked about issuing a statement around vaccines. We have talked about having staff and families sign agreements about codes of conduct. For example, you will wear your mask for the entire time that you are in the school. You will not engage in activity that could be detrimental to coworkers or students, like gather in large crowds or, any of the things that we all know. But I guess we could add information in that document about vaccinations. We need to think through that a little bit. But yeah, it's our stance right now that we are not mandating staff to get vaccines, that it is up to them.
Yes, I don't disagree with that, but for the sake of parents who just need to maybe necessarily make them aware of that up front, so they have knowledge of the school's positioning.
That's a very good point.
You'll get those questions anyway from parents, so.
Absolutely.
And then I'm always thinking about the safety of the school, both the students, person, and the administration financially. Is the DC Public Schools Charter School Board, have they come out with any insurance programs for schools to deal with future pandemics, or if anything should come arise about?
Not necessarily from the DC Public Charter School Board. Stokes School has been in touch with our insurance broker about increasing things like liability coverage. And I believe that there is language in our coverage right now that speaks to pandemics. I can't quote it to you right now, but we have been in conversations about how to protect both the school staff and students through our insurance program.
Okay. And if you need any support, I'm willing to help out with that.
I would love your support, Carlos, and I will circle back to you about that.
Okay.
Erica, on that issue, are there has the Charter School Association, there's a Charter School Association as well. It might be worthwhile for them to put on their agenda some lobbying for liability supports, either through the board or even to the council, since that seems to be stalled out in the federal conversation. It would be a useful thing for the city to take up. And I know you're involved in that organization, so I wonder, Carlos, if you guys are going to work on it, that we at least think about some umbrella protections around schools if they have different policies and stances for vaccine. I think that would be really important.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, we can reach out. The Alliance is very actively convening school leaders and in touch with city leaders about making sure that schools are as well prepared in terms of everything from, they've been lobbying for testing at charter schools in parity with, COVID testing that's taking place at DCPS schools, ensuring that there are school nurses in every charter school that participates in the school nursing program. There are a lot of ways that they've been supporting us, and I don't recall reading or hearing about anything that pertains to insurance, but we can definitely bring that up with them. Thanks for that suggestion, Carlos and Heather.
Hey, Erica, what's DCPS doing? Do we know what they put out about this? Because they're trying to get kids back in the building this semester, I know.
what is DCPS doing in terms of re-entering their school buildings?
Their policy for vaccination and school student onboarding.
I don't know what DCPS's policy is about vaccination. I do know that DCPS has, they are standing up a fairly robust testing program for students and staff within their schools that have the CARES programs, which are, similar to what we're planning to do when we bring kids back into our buildings there. About 10% of their students are in class, in school buildings, taking virtual classes and being supervised by school staff. They are testing, they have plans in place to test their students and staff on a fairly regular basis. But I do not know about their stance on vaccination, but we can try to get that information.
I just put the Washington Post article that talked about their troubles on January 2nd, so you can reference that, and I'll look on the website for you, Hoyt, just so you have some some resources. But
I asked that question only for the idea that whatever they are doing could be looked at as a baseline, and what's good from there, we can take it. What's not so good, we can leave it.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, comments, suggestions about reopening and reentry? Okay. So I wanted to just share with you all, as we speak right now, we have an open house session taking place, I believe, at our, I'm not sure which campus. There is an open house session taking place for prospective families who are interested in Stokes School for next year. Obviously, this is a virtual session. This is an example of one of the ways that we've adapted to our current circumstances. We've already had a couple of these open house sessions that have been pretty well attended. And I wanted to share with you a film that Kia Meredith Caballero, who has worked on our school's website and who has done some other film work for us, has put together a really lovely little snippet for us to share with prospective families. We're also going to put this up on our website for families to see if they're not able to participate in an open house. Let me see if I can share this with you. I need to share the volume. Let's see. Okay. Oops. Let me try this again. This is the first. This is the first time I've tried to share volume and video.
Do we hear kids' cartoons in the background?
You may hear a 21-year-old's anime cartoons playing in the background.
That's still a kid.
Definitely.
Okay, let's see. Okay. You guys tell me if you are able to hear this volume. There's a link to this. No, you can't hear the volume. Okay. Do we have any expertise who can walk me through how to share the audio here? I see anybody know how to do this?
In the settings?
Yeah, I see. Okay, music or computer sound only. Share. I have no idea. Well, so in
You
your
can send
free
the link
time.
to us. Send the
It
link
is
to us. Put it in the
in
chat.
the live binder. There's a link to this open house. It's about a 10-minute long video. It's a really lovely synopsis of Stokes School's history, our students and staff, our programming, but take a look at it when you have a chance, because I think it is a wonderful addition to the information that we are presenting to our families about our school. Julia's in the waiting room. I wonder if she's
in the live binders. Is it in your report? How do you get to the link, Erica?
It's in the live binder. It's in my report. It's
Okay.
the last slide of this presentation, and you can just click on to that link,
Yeah.
and you should be able to see the video, see and hear the video.
Okay.
Okay. Let's
Any
see.
final questions for Erica's report? Oh, sorry, you're not done.
Sorry. Julia was saying that she could hop back in and do that.
And show the video?
Yeah. Hold on a
Let
second.
her in. Let her in.
When I click the link in live binder, it doesn't work. So yeah.
No? Okay. All right. Well, Julia's coming back in.
Hey, Janice, it works if you click in the link in the chat, and then it'll pull it up if you're on a computer in your Firefox or your Safari pages.
Hang on a second. Thanks.
So Julia's coming to the rescue, as always.
Yay, Julia!
Let's see. Will you drop the link in the?
What's that?
Would you
Drop
drop
the
the
link.
link?
Yes, yes.
It
Okay.
doesn't work. I can always get it out of my Outlook.
Okay, hold on. Let me get to the link. Ooh. Okay. Thank you, Julia.
Give me freedom, give me fire, give me reason, take me higher. See the champions, take the field now. You define us, make us feel proud.
The Elsie Whitlow Stokes Community Freedom Public Charter School opened its doors in September 1998. It's named after Linda Moore's mother, Elsie Whitlow Stokes, who was an elementary school teacher in Arkansas for 36 years. She applied 3 basic principles to lay down the foundation for successful educational development. Every student can succeed academically and become a responsible citizen. Every student needs a solid foundation in reading, mathematics, social studies, science, and the arts. Every student can contribute to the community through service activities that prepare the student to become a caring neighbor and responsible citizen. When Stokes School opened, it was located in the basement of a church in Northwest Washington, D.C., serving 35 kindergarten and first grade students. By 2008, Stokes School purchased its very own building in the Brookland neighborhood of Northeast D.C. This move allowed enrollment to expand from 250 students to 350. In 2018, Stokes opened a second campus with 140 pre-K and kindergarten students. By 2024, Stokes will more than double the number of students served and will bring a vibrant, successful academic model to DC. The Elsie Whitlow Stokes Community Freedom Public Charter School prepares culturally diverse preschool and elementary school students in the District of Columbia to be leaders, scholars, and responsible citizens who are committed to social justice. We teach children to think, speak, read, write, and learn in 2 languages, English and French, or English and Spanish. With a dual focus on academic excellence and community service, the Stokes School accomplishes its mission by creating an environment of achievement, respect, and nonviolence. Our vision is to be recognized and respected as a premier model of urban education in the United States. You may be wondering how charter schools function. We are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. The corporation operates as a school. We operate independently but are held accountable to the same standards as DC Public Schools. We are governed by a board of trustees. DC Public Charter School Board provides oversight. They evaluate academic results, ensure compliance with local and federal laws, and monitor our fiscal management. We do everything in-house. There's no backstopping from a central office. Pre-kindergarten classes are taught 90% in the target language, 10% in English. Our student-teacher ratio is 1 to 10. We implement small group centers. Assessment of all areas of child development are social emotional, physical, language, cognitive, literacy, and mathematics. Our curriculum emphasizes hands-on, student-centered, and inquiry-based learning in alignment with the International Baccalaureate Program. Common Core standards include balanced literacy with Reader's Workshop, Writer's Workshop, and Words Their Way. Mathematics investigations include students developing a deep conceptual understanding of the CCSS and engage in CCSS mathematical practices. Next Generation Science Standards, DC Standards for Social Studies, and IB Units of Inquiry. Kindergarten to 5th grade language immersion is 50% in the target language and 50% in English. The International Baccalaureate Program prepares students to become active, caring, lifelong learners who demonstrate respect for themselves and others, and have the capacity to participate in the world around them. It focuses on the development of the whole child as an inquirer both within and beyond the classroom. At Stokes School, our approach is to educate the whole child. This means we focus on social, emotional, physical education, and health, including peace of mind and restorative practices. We have an award-winning food program. All meals are fresh, prepared daily in-house. We are able to accommodate specific dietary needs. A highlight of our language immersion program is the 5th grade international study tours to Panama and Martinique. Students spend a week fully immersed in the culture of their target language. Stokes School is a community. We view parents as partners in the education of their scholar. We offer a variety of opportunities for family engagement. Home visits, First Friday breakfast, parent-teacher conferences, the Stokes PTA, parent workshops, and the equity team. If you are interested in applying to Stokes School, you must complete the application in My School DC. If you do not have a preference for language or campus, you can apply to Stokes School up to 4 times. please make a note of the following dates.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. So this, I think, is another example of one of the good things that has come out of our virtual learning session or posture. This film is something that we've talked about doing for several years, but haven't done it until now when we were forced to do it. But it's beautiful work, and I think is a wonderful reflection of the school. So thanks to Kia for putting it together and for all of the staff that contributed to it. And thank you, Julia, again, for allowing us to see it. You'll have to give me a tutorial. Appreciate it.
We're all growing and learning.
Yeah. Any questions about the film or anything else in my report? Okay.
All right. Hearing none, we will conclude this agenda item. The final agenda item on the open meeting is any other business. I thought it would be worth just repeating that if you have other business in advance, trustees should feel free to send those items to myself and or Erica in advance of the meeting. But we always save a slot on the agenda for other business that trustees may have that need to be addressed at this time. So any other business?
Just one question. School going to be closed for the MLK holiday, and as well the inauguration is that week. Are you closing for inauguration or just?
School will not be in session on the 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Okay. I have nothing else, Madam Chairman.
Thanks. Thank you, Carlos. All right. With that, we will conclude. We will adjourn the meeting. We are going to go into closed session for personnel matters. And I think each trustee has access to the meeting information there. So we will report back to you, Ms. Bryant. And thanks so much, everybody, for your attention and engagement and commitments to the board and the school.
Madam Chairman, do we have to make a motion to adjourn or can we just adjourn?
Oh, I always forget this part.
Yes.
Do we need a motion? We need a motion? Thank you. Sorry. Thanks. So Carlos, what do you think?
I motion that we adjourn today's board meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor, but Carlos, I need a second.
I second.
Second with Rodney. All right. Okay, here comes that roll call. Ms. Moore, aye, or nay?
No vote.
No vote. Hoyt? You're muted.
Yay.
Thank you. Valeria?
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Janice?
Aye.
Rodney?
Aye.
Carlos?
Aye.
Erica McGrady?
Aye.
And Tracy?
Aye.
And